Welcome to Before, During, After, a Smirk Experience podcast about performance from the inside. Every week, I'll sit down with a professional comedian to unpack how they prepare for a gig, what they're thinking about while they're on stage, and how they reflect once it's over. Because great performances don't just happen, they're built. Today's guest is Russell Hicks. I'm proud of all the episodes that I've done so far of this podcast, but I have to say I've been especially looking forward to sharing this one with you. Russ is an ad-lib comic. He will look at things in the room and riff on them for the majority of his set. In an industry of brave people, I would say Russ is relatively peerless in his level of bravery. If you're unfamiliar with Russ's style, I've put a short clip of him doing a smirk show in the episode notes of this podcast. If you have time, pause this podcast, watch the video. It's only about 30 or 40 seconds, and then come back to the podcast because it will give you a better understanding of the types of stuff Russ and me are talking about, which include how he has previously prepped for a show with zero material, holding the attention of rooms, breaking through the barrier of fear, plus the craziest gigs that Russ has ever done. And as you might expect, they get pretty crazy with him. Enjoy. It's funny, Russ, sometimes I sort of scratch around how to start these, but with you, I feel like I could ask you questions about your comedy techniques for about 4 hours.
That's nice.
Which we don't have time to do. Here's one to kick off. If I asked you for an approximate ratio for your shows of crowd work versus pre-prepared material,
Yeah.
roughly what would the numbers be?
I would say sometimes, I used to be more like I probably used to be I used to aim for 100%, but now I look back and I think, well, that's kind of a perfectionist way of approaching it. Because then all you're going to do is beat yourself up, which is a weird thing to beat yourself up for afterward if you do a bit. But these days, I would say it's as much as I like to think, wow, it's like 50-50 now. It's probably like 85-15 or 90-10, depending on how long the set is. I mean, if it's like a 20-minute set, sometimes I do, like, if I was at top, you never know, like there's been times where I've done full 20s lately that are, maybe closer to like 60-40. And that's just evolved over time. But like the other night I was at Top Secret and I did like a 15-minute set. I would say it was like 9. I don't think I did any bits at all. It was like 100% just winging it. So yeah, I mean, it's like I don't really like. Yeah, I would say like at its highest, it's like an 80-20 maybe.
Right, and that's obviously in favor of
improvising.
Improvising, right? And most people watching this have never tried stand-up comedy, and I can't even begin to tell people how tricky and impressive that is. So if you've got that much crowd stuff, what would constitute preparation for a gig for you?
When I was younger, I actually used to just like, I think when I was younger, I used to like make sure my brain was like full of stuff. So once I kind of got into that as a style, it sort of suited my desire to learn and read. So I would like read like almanacs of and like watch all these movies and documentaries because then I had all these things to pull from when I got on stage. Be like, if I'm improvising, I could pull all these references and I knew all these facts and stuff. And like, so I guess that's a form of preparation. But pre-show, like right before I would go on, I used to walk around and listen to music. I didn't want to know anything that was going on in the room at all because I wanted it to be fresh, you know? Because the style that I try to perform is not to ask people questions. I try not to be like, what's your name? What do you do? Because then everybody's like, people have already done that. So if I come on and it's fresh and I've never seen them, my reaction is going to be more pure. And so I'll be like, well, this is what's going on to me. And it might take people a minute to be like, well, no, this is Tom. He's the guy who works in finance. And it's like, but then after a couple minutes, it's like, well, no, we're in this new world now. This is this guy's interpretation of like what is happening. And I don't do the music anymore. I don't listen to music, but I disappear. And I think a lot of people find that promoters who know me know like I don't know where he is, but he's gonna apparate in this spot within about 30 seconds of going on. But some promoters, if they haven't worked with me before, they get very nervous. They're like, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And it's like, I'm good, dude. I'm taking a lap. Like, I don't like to stand right next to the stage. I like to like walk around. For whatever reason, I have to pee a lot, like right before I go on. Like, I don't want to be on stage with a full bladder. So I'm like, all right, I go to the toilet, I come back, you know.
Mm.
So I walk around. I walk around a lot. I like to move around the building before I go on stage.
You see, again, that is a whole other level of craziness. If you said to most comics, right, you got to do 80% crowd work, I guarantee you they would be there at the back of the room an hour before the show started with a notebook,
Sure.
furiously writing things down. For you
Yeah.
to say that it's almost like Harry Houdini doing a trick. Mr. Hicks will remain blindfolded until the show starts.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool, man. That's funny. I mean, I I don't really understand that fear. I would like to know why. I know a lot of people are like, that's like the scariest thing to me. And I kind of get it, but I also don't. I'm like, what's the fear? Like, what are you afraid of? Like, what? Because I think as a comedian, you have I have a high tolerance for pain because I've taken myself to some of the furthest depths of bombing. You know, like, but like almost on purpose. A lot of times on most of the time by accident. But when I'm there, I go, oh, this is new. Like how far down to the center of the earth can we do right? Can we take this? Because once you've gone to that place, like once you've been on stage in Birmingham, at a Junglers in 2014, and the entire room is in Christmas hats, and not only silent but like furiously angry, then that's kind of a new level you've opened up, and you're like, well, you know, it's not going to be that bad. Like I've been there, you know. I don't know, so I'm
Yeah.
like I'm more confident in my ability to recover than I am to sustain in a way.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I do know exactly what you mean. On a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous are you pre-show?
It's weird, man. I mean, it's probably not even nerves, it's probably more adrenaline, but sometimes it is nerves. Like it's very it's rare. Like I think at comedy clubs, I'm very relaxed. Like I can eat. I like to eat before I go on because if I go on hungry, I'll get like I'll be really sort of sensitive and I can get angry. And I know a lot of comics can't even eat before they go on, but I'm pretty relaxed. I would say the things that make me nervous, I did a corporate recently that was so poorly set up. And I was supposed to go on in the second half to open the second half. And then Alistair Berry was going to close it. And that was sort of like my sneaky little way of, positioning myself to be like, this will be the best spot. I know this is the best spot of the night. You do not want to close this night, because it was just this like horrendous, like really badly set up corporate where like and the first two acts went on and like nobody was paying attention. I mean, like talking, just corporate people that have never done an artistic thing in their lives, have no concept for like how to behave themselves, and just like the worst thing getting heckled is being ignored.
Yeah.
And I mean, the comics were potted plants. It was amazing. And so I go, great. I'm going on in the second half when they're boozed up. They've been told what to, like, maybe this is going to be better. I disappeared like I always do. This time I disappeared too long. They started the show quicker than I thought they would because it was such a shambles of a corporate. I thought nobody's going to take less than a 10-minute interval. They did a 5-minute interval. Let's get the show back on. I come on. Alistair Berry is about to go. He's going on. So they've gone, oh shit, we have to put Alistair in, because I'm like, damn it. He goes on and is the first person of the night to absolutely turn it around. He murders it. And I was like, there was only going to be one survivor that night. I knew it. There was only ever going to be, like the Highlander, there can only be one. And I was like, that I was a little nervous, like you were about to go into like a UFC cage or something, and you knew you were out of shape. I was like, oh God. So that was one. And the ending to that isn't as good, because I actually did do really well, but
Right.
and I know the good ending would be like, and I bombed, but no, I survived. No. But before I went on, which is rare, like when you're this long in the game, before I went on, I actually told my partner afterward, Chloe, I said, I actually, usually I'm like, this is going to go good, or this is going to go, but this one I was like, I really don't know. I actually don't. And it's been a long time since I felt that, where I was like, just take a breath and pray.
I can imagine for a sort of slightly rough around the edges gig like that, your ad-libby, what are you looking at, like type style, would have possibly worked better than, here's a load of jokes, everybody. I find when I've done corporates, you have to kind of make it about them, which your style lends itself to perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it does. That's true. And I've thought about that. I thought about when I was younger, and people would be like, you can't do what you do. I would get a lot of advice like that. And in a way I know what they meant. They were trying to say like, you won't get on TV and you won't be a certain type of comic. But I also got a lot of work that I wouldn't have, that I don't know. Like corporates, like they're not, the thing about corporates is they're not as scary to me as they are to other people, because I am sort of good at being in a situation that is not like, I don't even know what you would call it. There's a word, but it's like a chaotic situation. Like if you put me, if you just release me in a, like, I remember I was on this show for Channel 4 called Captive Audience. And it was me, Laura Smith, and someone else, right? And we basically had to walk around a food court. The whole premise of the show was that you do comedy in random situations that are impossible. And like, I would say, I probably shouldn't have mentioned Laura. Well, she won't mind, but whatever. I did really good on that. I did good.
Yeah.
Like it was like kind of suited me. Um, but when you look at like maybe some of the other acts didn't suit them, but they've done big TV stuff, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So it's like I think it's kind of like an odd skill that I lean into, but it's weird. It's almost like finding a place for it in the medium sometimes is difficult because it's like as a professional, of all the people on that show, I didn't do like Live at the Apollo. They wouldn't maybe who cares the industry, whatever. I'm just saying like there's not that much of a platform for that. Like,
Yeah.
maybe that show was the best thing, but even after I did well on that show, it's like they didn't like bring me on a bunch of other stuff, but that's a whole other thing. That's a whole industry thing. They have their own horses and they own the race. So there you go.
Absolutely right. One of the elements I always think about reading a room is asking yourself, has this audience chosen to be here or not? And in the case of corporates, they haven't chosen to watch a comic. It's one office manager. In the case of the premise of that TV show, that's another one that they haven't chosen to be there. And if you're mindful of that, what you need to do is make it about them. If you just dive straight into pre-written jokes that would, smash it on Live at the Apollo once everyone's warmed up and they've all been excited about being there, that doesn't work as well in that environment. Matt Price once told me that he was booked to do 20 minutes at a private meal, like a private room of a restaurant. And
Mm.
he said that he turned up, knocked on the door. Can we help you? Yeah, I suppose you can, mate. Blah, 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 blah. And he said he did about 10 minutes. It was going really well till one of them said, mate, this is fantastic. Why are you here? And he said, well, it's Dave's birthday. And they go, no, there's no one here called Dave. And he was in the wrong room doing that.
Oh,
And and that is when I I haven't done it, but sometimes if I'm in a group of people, like a big crowd, and I'm just
yeah,
a punter, I think to myself, if I like ding 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 ding, ding like tapped a glass and stood up,
yeah,
how long could I hold their attention for? And
yeah.
you would be a master at that.
Well, but it's funny, but sometimes like because they haven't chosen to be there, if you actually come in and just start picking on people, it can be a little jarring because they didn't choose to be there. So
Right.
they're like, whoa. So that's not always a guarantee. Actually, sometimes you have to just like, I don't know, talk about the room or sort of ingratiate yourself because if sometimes it's even worse if they didn't choose to be there to then be like picked apart. They're going to be like, it's almost like you did
Oh
just
yeah.
it's like you walked into a restaurant and just started ripping on people. They'd be like, well, who are you? Like, let's fight, especially if it's like, like a spoons or something. And it's like, it's true. Like, cause some
Of course it
corporates are
is.
like that,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, like the thing about corporates too is like when they can be like, yes, I can do them and I'm suited, but I think that when they're really annoying is when you show up and there's just like no thought whatsoever into the preparation of it. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you're going to stand over there in the corner behind that pillar. And there's no microphone. And also let us know when you're going on because that's when we'll serve dinner. And it's like, why?
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Why? And that can be like annoying. But, when they're like nice and I'll tell you when it's the best. I have a friend named Clara who runs gigs called Nice and Spiky, and like they will sometimes hire her to set up a comedy night.
Yeah, right.
Those are the best because then it's like she comes in, she puts a microphone and makes it like a thing. But in general, like I was thinking about that captive audience and stuff, like I am sort of at a point now where I challenge myself to like, I like to play like a theater. I like to do things where it's more like, okay, like do some material or give us your version of a show, because I was at Top Secret like about 6 months ago, and I went on stage and I was going to do a whip for this like show that I'm working on. And it was going to be totally different. I had a bunch of notes, and I was going to just like work out ideas and play around and try to, expand and experiment. And within about 2 minutes, it was a free show at 6 p.m. So you get random people showing up. I got heckled. I got sort of like, they were kind of mean. And then I know in my head, they don't know me, but I know that I'm like a street fighter of a comic. And I was like, if you guys want to go into the alley with, Bruce Lee, a little bit of an egomaniac, maybe not Bruce Lee. If you want to go into the alley with a middle-aged Chuck Norris, rest in peace, with a cut-off denim jacket, like we can do that. But I just thought to myself, you know what? I've done that 1,000 times. I know exactly how this night will go. I will battle these people for 45 minutes. I'll be funny. And eventually they'll be like, that was amazing. And I'll be like, yeah, that was unnecessary. And I'll walk away feeling ultimately unfulfilled. And I just left. And
Did you? All right.
yeah, and I've never done that in comedy. I just said, you know what, folks? I don't think this is going to work tonight. I'm going to go. And I walked off, and I've never done that before. And I got to say, the amount of self-respect that I felt for myself was like, I was on a high. I was like, whoa, I can't believe I did that. And I'm not going to make a habit of it, because like the difference is like it was a free, because it was a free show, and none of them knew who I was. I was like, I owe you nothing. I certainly don't owe you to sit here and fight with you and pretend and convince you I'm a comic. So I just left. And because I think there is an element sometimes where it's like, I've proven to myself over 15 years, like I know I can do the bare knuckle boxing fight of comedy. Like you throw me into a dumpster fire of a show, I can win it. And sometimes I'm just like, I'm a bit bored of that, so I avoid that when I can. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This gig is like in a theater, and it's like everybody's listening. Well, that's a challenge for me. Let me see what I can do, and like improvise that way, and like still do my style. But I used to get offered but it was kind of good for me in my early years, because I got offered, like, I remember I would get offers. They'd be like, someone would call me and go, hey, I got offered this gig, and I turned it down because it's like impossible. But do you want it? Because it's like it's in a horrible room, or I would get people call me and be like, hey, we asked like 3 comics to do this show, and they said no, they're not going to perform on a bus while it's driving. But they all recommended. They said you'd be good. And I was like, and I would end up, ironically, I would end up playing the hardest rooms, which was kind of how I trained myself, like early on, though. I remember back in San Diego, like I would just be like, I felt like I had to learn to play the hardest rooms. And I don't know if that's true of a new comedian. Like I also know a lot of comedians that were really successful who they were just sort of like, well, why would I play a hard room? That sounds awful. I'm just going to go play these nice, happy festivals in Wales where people are listening. And that's cool, man. I mean, I think ultimately those comics, they lack a certain level of stage presence sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a certain, like, they're really good. Don't get me wrong. They're like, they know what they want and they go for it. And I think you can learn something from them. Like, I think comedians always are like, oh, this guy doesn't like me. Well, I need to go find out why. When it's like, you should just be like, forget that guy, but it's like the hard room is like this big challenge you have to face. But
yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And part of it comes back down to reading a room, doesn't it? When I first started, I got on with Jeff Whiting, and I could drive, so I would basically
Winning
be.
combo.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I would basically be the headline act's driver who was relatively funny, but not as funny as the headliner. And some of them would be like beautiful theatres. Other times it would be a mic in the corner of a pub
Mm.
full of people that haven't chosen to watch the comedy. And you get very good at quickly thinking what is going to work here.
Yeah.
Like you know, if people are talking in a theater, you can dig them out and shut them up. People are talking in a pub, you can't do that.
Nah.
You need to say, "Oh, what's going on over there? What are you two lads talking about? Fishing? That's interesting." You know, as opposed to saying, "Shut the fuck up, these show's on." So you get better at that. Russ, this is absolutely fascinating stuff. Now let's get on to during. So you have been suspended above the stage, upside down for an hour before the show, blindfold. You are brought on, ladies and gentlemen, Russell Hicks, clap, 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 clap. What are you looking at in a room? You know that bit in Terminator where his target is going around and he's getting like a
Yeah.
readout. What is your readout when you start a show if you're looking to do mainly crowd work?
Like when I go on, I don't really try. I don't go, oh, let me like who am I gonna find? I just sort of they just naturally emerge to me. And they tend to be somehow I think the people who would most enjoy it. I tend to not like the people that pop out at me aren't the people that are more like what do they call them, like wilting flowers, the people like me who would like maybe be like, I don't want to be a part of this. It's like the kind of guys that pop out to me are sort of like alpha male jockish guys who can take a beating, and they pop out to me because they pop out to me in life. If I notice somebody with too much confidence, I'm always just like, what is this guy's deal? Like it doesn't sit right with me. I'm like, this why does this person not have trauma? It's just like it just irritates me, and then I got to figure that out. Hey, what's your name? Who are you? What do you do? What do you? How are you? You're 22 and you're wearing a sweater vest. The hell is what? Were you in a cult? Like I don't like. I have to figure it out. Whereas like I can sort of like instinctually see my people, and it's almost like I'm saying to them, "Don't worry, guys. I've seen the same guy you did, and we're gonna." By the end of the night, I will bring him to our level. Don't you worry. Um, and that can be fun, and I try to do it in a way that like even if you're a little reticent, like last night I was in Guildford, which can be a notoriously not a giving crowd. They're very like they just they play it close to the chest, and so even when I'm playing with them, I like to make it. I try not to roast anybody. I don't want anybody leaving the show with like a complex. It's more like we're playing around. I want someone to leave with like a funny story, like a cool thing, that they can like, something like build them up. It's like an improv thing too, where it's like you build things up rather than tear them down. Because if you tear it down, it's a dead end. So when you build things, it's like yes and basically. You're just like yes anding someone and just like. But you don't want to also give them too much. You don't want to put too much in their hands. I think when crowd work goes bad is when you put like when you start going, and I've been there. Trust me. When it's like, what do you do? I'm in marketing. What have you marketed lately? Once you start getting into those questions, like, what's the best thing you ever marketed before? Like, you're giving too much to the audience member, and they're gonna get nervous. Like, dude, what? I'm not a comedy writer. What's happening? Why am I?
Yeah.
So like, it's like in and out, and you should be running with it. And then they all relax and go, oh, great, like he's got this.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
not
yeah.
just like, holy shit, guys, like I think we're all writing this show.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it. That's it. I mean, I dabble. I kind of dip my toe into a pool that you dive headlong in.
mm,
And I always find it's a bit like that sort of Goldilocks thing they say when they're looking for life on other planets. You don't want
mm.
it to be too hot or too cold. You want it to be just right. You don't want someone who's just going to look into their chest and, but please don't talk to me. But you also don't want anyone who's too kind of like, ba ba, finally my time. Give me that microphone. And you're like, no,
Yeah,
no, no, no,
yeah.
no, no, no. You just want someone in the middle who can kind of play along with it. Here's a question for you, Russ. When you're going down one of your numerous, like, ad lib rabbit holes, how do you judge when to keep going further down or when to move on?
That's a good question because I was actually making a joke on stage last night that I will I will go and go and go. I mean,
Right.
like realistically, you would think I'd say like, "Oh, I when the audience stops laughing." No, that doesn't stop me. I think at my best, I move on when like I know when to keep going when I've hit a point that it's funny for me and there's a point that I can take an idea that makes me laugh and it doesn't matter if the crowd is laughing because if it's making me laugh then I think it's the kind of thing that I would want someone who does get me to I know they would like it if it's gotten to that like silly place with me.
Mm.
And when do I move on? I move on like when it's boring to me, when it's just kind of when it's when I can feel that I'm not allowing it to happen anymore. I'm trying to make it happen. I try to
Mm.
be in the moment when you talk about during the show, and it sounds like I know that's the cliche, be in the moment, but I do. I heard a thing recently. John Cleese said that you can't create from a place of fear, which sounds like itself kind of cliche advice. But when I really thought about it, I was like, that really is the thing that is my biggest nemesis on stage is, and I think for anyone who's gonna improvise, they would probably be like, well, duh, is when you let the fear creep in, it suffocates your creativity. And it happens when you're on an idea and you're improvising and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, they're bored, they're not liking this, and then you start to close down and then the portal in your mind shuts and your ideas get worse. But if you can be in a place of fun and feel like really relaxed up there, my mind opens and it's like Ghostbusters. All the ghosts come out like in the end of the movie. And it's like there's so much more to play with. But ironically, I can only get there if I allow myself. So it's like it's me getting in my own way. It's not the crowd. I mean, the crowd can be difficult. They can like not laugh at stuff and just be like not on board for the silliness. But it's like there was always this quote that I loved that I heard this secondhand. I don't know if Bill Hicks ever said this, but someone said Bill Hicks said, if you don't have fun and they don't have fun, no one had fun. And so I think that's great. Like you should just try to have fun. If you have fun, then you're good because chances are if you're having fun, your people, ideally the whole crowd is your people, but even if there's only like I've had so many shows where like I'm having the time of my life and in a room of 100 people, there's maybe 3 or 4 people laughing, but those 4 people and I are having such a connection, and I can tell that I am giving this one guy, usually it's a dude, so much joy, and I'm just like, you're correct. And it'll usually be when I've taken an improv to the point that it's just absolutely absurd, and there will just be 3 people in the audience like blacking out with laughter in a room full of 86 other people just going, why?
The fuck is he talking about?
But
Brilliant, brilliant.
I will leave those shows. I will feel good after that show. because I will feel like I was like it's like laughter is cathartic, and if you can make yourself giggle with those four people, you'll leave like, hey man. And I used to say people, they'd go, how was the show? And rather than be negative and go, nah, they didn't like it, but I say I had fun. That's how
Amazing.
I would say it.
That's great.
As a
That's
way to
great.
tell the truth, but not get into that negativity. Be like, I had fun. That's how that show went, and then just leave it at that.
You're you're basically saying that you and the three other people's joy outweighs the bewilderment of everyone else in the room. And
Absolutely.
I absolutely love that. If you had to break it down, what do you think is the biggest myth of crowd work that people that don't do it have?
I think that amongst comedians, there is a certain type of comic that I've come into contact with my entire career who sometimes is just like vehemently opposed to it. Like, and it's always weird to me because I would think that if because a lot of these guys are artists themselves. And I think, how do you not understand different mediums? Like, if
Yeah,
you're a painter and, you paint beautiful scenic pieces,
right.
how do you not
Right.
understand that Jackson Pollock is also valid? I don't know, like how you like. I remember like someone I really respect once was like, I was at the airport with him and he kind of took a dig at me and I was like really hurt. He said something to the effect of like, let's be honest. He goes, what's your name? What do you do? And he goes, that's all you're doing, isn't it? Or something like that. And I was like, all right. And I mean, like, I felt like he was, I've had other people be like, I had one comic once when I got off stage. He goes, I hate crowd work. He just said, I hate crowd work. And I was like, okay. Uh, Especially now, it became like a trend for like, and it's always like really written, very strict, like rock on tours who I really respect and like want that skill set. I would love to be able to tell stories. They're the ones that are usually like the most like especially when it became a trend for like people on TikTok to do a lot of improv and crowd work now. It's like everybody came down on it. And it is weird to see my style of comedy get a moment. But at the same time, I also feel like this has never been the smartest career move. So like we finally got one little window of time where anyone cared and everybody got mad. And it's like, don't worry, like this trend will be over like in a year. And like give us one give us one day in the sun, like.
Well, I personally find that astounding. And obviously, I'm not going to ask you to name names, but my hypothesis of that situation would be it's good old fashioned envy.
Well, I will tell you one
They,
name because I'll tell you
oh,
one name because
oh,
he's what he
well
said
done.
was funny. Sean Patton, this
Okay.
Ameri- this American comic named Sean Patton. I saw him. I met him, I think, at the Soho Theater once, and he actually said something really funny to me that I thought was a compliment. He said, "Oh, you're that guy who I've heard of you," and he goes, "Yeah, a friend of mine told me. He said there's this guy Russell Hicks, and he just riffs everything, which sounds horrible, but it's actually pretty good."
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was like, that's cool, man.
I
I just
would.
thought that it was funny that he said that to my face. Like, sounds horrible, but it's actually good. And I was like,
Well,
I'll take that.
well, that is, yeah. I would say most comics that dig you out would secretly watch you. Sorry, would watch you and secretly think, "Fuck, I wish I could do that."
Well, I think some people see it. I mean, it doesn't bother me anymore because it's so rare. Like mostly, and I think because I know so many people in on this British circuit. Like pretty much everybody knows if you've booked me, they know what I'm gonna do, and I feel like everyone's gotten used to it. So, but like, sometimes people will come over from New York or something, and like, I remember one guy was just like, "Oh, don't you just make it up?" Like he just the little things like that, like the way they say it is like, it's like I can tell that they think like, "Oh, I just choose to just do this thing." Um, when in actuality, it's like my style. It's just like a style that chose me. It's like I don't like. It's my natural. I worked hard at comedy and I tried to write jokes and then it just evolved that way and I just followed what was working and I'm always trying to get better at different things. But it's funny, it's sometimes it'll be like joke writers, like people like that who just like are very, they can be snooty with it. But then at the same time, some joke
Right.
writers can really get it. Like I actually think like one-liner comics and me, we have a lot in common because
Hmm.
we both do something that can sometimes be looked at as like almost like a novelty song, like the same way,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
whoever wrote what's a good novelty song, like I don't know, like that, like everybody's heard about the bird, blah, 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 blah. Like
Okay.
people might be like, like I don't imagine that,
Right.
you know,
Right.
like maybe like the Beatles wouldn't necessarily, well, actually no, the Beatles were cool, they would respect that, but you know,
Yeah, they would.
any,
They
you
used
know,
to have Ringo sing songs, so they
yeah, but the Beatles are, but see, the Beatles to me, like, I feel like, I don't know the Beatles personally, but I feel like they are representative of the kind of artists who understand that there's merit in so many different forms of music and creativity. And so, like, yeah, with like me and one-liner comics, we can sometimes get looked at as a novelty act, and I think that we have a similar way of approaching our styles as well, like similar rules. Like you kind of have to break it up, Like I was talking to Gary Delaney once, and he's like, I've got to do something different around the
yeah,
30-minute mark because it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
too
yeah,
much. Like one liner, one liner, one liner, one liner.
yeah, yeah.
Milton
Like
Jones is the same.
Tim Vine will sing a song or he'll throw a pen to land behind his ear because
Yeah.
otherwise with that style of comedy it's like you're being shot with a machine gun almost, isn't it? It's just brrrr,
Yeah.
and you you can't you can't take a breath. Russ, I would say that I'm not as much of a comedy snob as some of these people who've been digging you out, but in my book, the only thing that is important is being funny. And we're going to talk at the end about how people can find you. But I would just say to the audience now, everyone has this shared experience of something being created in front of their eyes that's brilliant and they feel part of in a way that you don't always get if someone recites a 20-minute set that maybe they've been doing since fucking 2010 or something like that. When it works, it's magical. But Russ, tell us about a time when, with hindsight, you picked on the wrong person.
Oh yeah.
This
Oh
would
yeah,
be
I can think of
this
a
would
couple.
be some people's idea of living hell. Like they would be in therapy because of this, and you're like, oh yeah, there. I can think of a couple. Go on, buddy.
Yeah, there's been like one or two times. I would say, and I could probably warn, this one wasn't one time, but sometimes this can happen, like and I'll give anyone the new comics, this is a genuine warning that you can heed. If you ever play the walnut tree in Maidstone,
Yeah, it's the
the
walnut tree.
guy who walks in who looks like a wizard, the guy with really long hair and a beard who looks like, the murderer on I Know What You Did Last Summer, like, don't say anything to him when he walks in. That's it. Don't say anything to him, because yeah.
That is the gig with the camera. Talking of weird setups, that is the one with the camera playing to a live feed in an adjacent room of the pub.
Oh,
Is that
that's right.
is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah, maybe that's a new feature. When I played it, you had to. Yeah, that's the one, and they have a dog bowl in the at the stage, and the dogs, drink the water. And what's so funny about that gig is they've made no effort to make it better in 30 years,
No, no.
and they think that's funny. They just put a plaque. There's a plaque outside the door that says many comedians have died here, which is like I mean, it's a rite of passage, man. I mean, I think
Yeah, yeah,
everybody's played it. Like
yeah.
literally, like so many famous comics have gone through there.
I have. Well, I mean, we've been. This, I think, is the second or third time that it's been mentioned, and we're only 10 episodes into this
Oh,
podcast.
is that right?
So,
People mentioned it. Ah, that's
yeah, man.
funny.
Have you ever had anyone who doesn't get the joke and, like, I don't know, gets really angry with you?
Yeah, it's you know what, man, and that's a really cool thing to think about is I'm like, that's really not happened in 15 years. It's really not a thing that is, I would say I can think of maybe three times when it was just the wrong guy, like one of them when I was really early. I was at an open mic and I used to improvise at open mics with the other comedians. I would like do crowd work on comics and about comedy, and I was really in those were really fun days back in LA. But one time I picked on this guy and listen, people in Hollywood, California at an open mic, a lot of them are truly mentally ill.
Right.
And he went mental. And I was like, whoa, I did not expect that. All I said was he was sitting the room was empty and he was sitting right in front of me and he had kind of weird hair like a racer head. And I said, why is this guy sitting in front of me like Dr. Strangelove? And I tried to do like a thing about like the doctor and Dr. Strangelove sitting there. And this dude, I said like, why is this guy? And he just snapped. And he stood up and he was screaming, and I was like, "Oh, this guy just got out of the asylum, right?" And
Oh,
then
wow.
all the other comics in LA, bless their hearts, their way of intervening was to all start live tweeting it. So they were like telling everyone, "Get down to Marty's, this place we used to go to called Marty's. It's kicking off right now." And me and that guy became we it's so funny. I never spoke to that guy about that, but somehow over the next 6 months, and I was only in LA for like a year and a half, we somehow became friends. But we never became friends. Like we just got to this point where we would silently acknowledge each other, like, "Hey, man," like.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like he had sort of gotten to know me by watching me, and I think it was his way of saying, good good set, I like your stuff. And I was like, you too. Like, and we never talked about that time that he was killed.
Was he an act that was on that night?
Yeah, he was an act.
Jesus
He was
Christ.
bananas. I mean, he was one of those guys. He used to just shout, like, he was nuts. I think his name was Gary. I don't want
Yeah.
to give his. I don't. If I knew his full name, I'd be too afraid he'd get on a plane and find me.
Yeah,
But
right.
no, he was interesting. I mean, guys like that were wild to watch, dude. Like, I mean, he was so people like that back in LA, man, you came across genuinely mentally ill people who
Yeah.
were like, it's like you think about like
Yeah.
edgy comics. You're like, I've seen the edge, like Patton Oswalt says, and he had a bit like that once, like, I've seen the edge, man. And you don't want to go there, dude. The real edge is populated by people who are hearing voices.
No, it's actually quite similar, the open mics. I was gigging when I started like 5, 6 nights a week, and you do become pals with people on the circuit. I don't know if it's the same in LA, but there were some super talented open micers who I never heard of again. And I sometimes think, Jesus, whatever happened to that girl? Man, she was brilliant. But for whatever reason, they just disappeared into the ether. It's a crazy time, but brilliant sort of learning curve, isn't it?
I remember a guy who started in San Diego that I still remember. His name was like Colin something. I forget his name, Colin. And he was great. Great jokes, dark joke writer. And I think if he would have stuck with it, he would have had a career and
Yeah.
just never saw him again.
Yeah,
He's
right.
something like, I think he's happy. Like, I think I remember him being like, he was married, had a kid coming, and he just made that decision of like, this is too time consuming, you know? And I was like, all right. But I never saw him again. And I was like, that guy had it. That guy would have, he
Yeah.
could have worked, you
Yeah,
know?
right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Can you think of any really unpredictable moments that you've had doing your, riffing style?
Like unpredictable moments, like crazy things that have happened.
Crazy things, or maybe just unexpected things. If you thought a chat with a punter would go down that route, but it does this incredible kind of 180 and goes somewhere completely different.
Let me see. Like,
Maybe your whole concept of weird and normal is just completely
yeah,
mangled. What is normal?
I'm trying to think, man. Sometimes like people do just like open up and tell you. I was doing a gig like about a year ago in like I think it was like in Bognor Regis, and somebody was just like told me that they we're at a golf course. Like I said something about like the area, blah blah, blah and I made some joke. And sometimes I can make a joke that's weirdly spot on. Like I'll
Hmm.
be like, "Oh, you look like you do this," and they're like, "Well, actually," and she was something like she was like, "I passed out in a bunker, like a golf course sand
Yeah, right.
bunker,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and woke up and everyone was around me wanking or something. Like it was something like insane. I was like, "What?" And then it turned out that like she was like into that kind of like weird sex stuff, and then just like they all went to like a sand bunker and a golf course to like I don't know, like have an orgy. And I was like it was just too much. It was like it was too much to unpack. It was like, and she was too eager to release that information. So
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that, I guess. I guess that's crazy. I guess now that I say it out loud, it just sounds like one of those like woo kooky show things. I mean, like
One of the shows that I run, I think it was the first gig that I hadn't hosted for about 4 years. It just so happened that it was a good time for me to go on holiday. I got Lenny Sherman to MC it in my absence, and I thought he won't take any crap. Len will keep the show on the road.
yeah,
Get a call afterwards from the girl who was helping me, just assuming, oh yeah, everyone did well. We had this many in, and she's like, oh God, we had to. This known woman randomly from Transylvania, which
wow,
normally people's race doesn't make any difference, but it kind of adds something to this story. She basically came along and ruined the whole show to the point where they had to pull it. She was just on the floor screaming. It's probably a good thing that I wasn't there,
oh,
because I'd have been so wound up, I just would have grabbed her by her ankles and dragged her out of there, and she would have like done me for assault or something.
yeah,
But there is no overestimating how crazy people can be. But I think in the main, you're right. There's a kind of unwritten contract, isn't there? If you go to a comedy show, especially if you sit in the front few rows, that you might, be part of the show. I always say to people, when they say, "Oh, the comedian picked on me," I always say it's actually a compliment if
yeah,
if a comic looks at you and think they can play along with this,
yeah,
they
yeah,
can take a joke.
yeah. It is, yeah,
So That's something to bear in mind. Few more, Russ, then we're done, mate. After you've already mentioned this about you having fun. If a show doesn't go to your liking, A, why is that? And B, how do you quantify it to get back on the horse?
I think if a show doesn't go to my liking these days, it's because I feel like, oh, I sort of like held back and I was like playing it safe, which is like, you're ultimately feeling like you gave the crowd less of an experience
Mm.
than they. But I think also it's more like comics are also balancing that thing of like we're trying to get better as performers while at the same time do a good show. And I think that the balance of that gets more balanced, for lack of a better word, as you get older. When you're younger, you're like, it's about me. And I'm like, I need to become the best comedian in the world. And then as you get older, you start to kind of be like, oh yeah, we are like comics. Like it's a job. Like we're supposed to be here to like make these people have some fun. And that can be good for your development as well. It takes you out of your own head so much.
Mm.
So you're trying to balance that, but I think for me, what I'm saying is like these days is like because I've kind of got the do the good show part down for the most part. It's the balance of like, okay, but did I do good comedy tonight? Did I grow? Or
Yeah.
did I just do whatever comedy? Like I want to be doing good comedy and giving them a good show. And sometimes you go, wow, I would not want anyone to see what I just did tonight. I would not want any room of my peers to witness the levels of hack that I just unleashed on these people. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I used to have a brilliant book. It was the Book of Lists, and I had it in my toilet. And when my wife moved in, she said, that's unhygienic having toilets in the bathroom. Get rid of them. And so we did.
Having toilets in the bathroom, books in the bathroom, yeah.
Books in the bathroom.
Weird. I was gonna say that took a different direction.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And
Yeah, all right.
one of the lists were phrases from other languages of which there is no direct English translation. And the French have a phrase that's called l'esprit de escalier. And what that literally means is the spirit of the stairs. And it's at the end of the day, when you're going to bed, your brain is like, yeah, when you were talking to that guy about woodwork, what you actually should have said there was, and you're like, well, if you'd have told me quicker, I'd have bloody well said it. I can,
Yeah.
that, those are the types of things sometimes that I find after gigs, you're going over all the information. And
Yeah.
with the benefit of whatever it is, 2 hours going over it, your
Yeah.
brain is then coming up with all of these dingers that you
Yeah.
should have come up with.
Totally, man. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think I've heard of that word. Either it might have been you that told me a couple months ago, but like I love that because that is true for sure. There was like, oh God, there was something like the other night. I have that sometimes, or like I'll get off stage and they'll be like, "Oh, you didn't know this, but this," and I'm like, ah, dude, if I would have just maybe opened myself to the room a little more and that would have come out, like the show would have gone on another level. And then you're
Yeah.
just like, well, that's on the table. That's that.
Well, exactly. If it's done, it's done. Russ, some of the people watching this will be doing presentations and speeches for work that are very, very scripted, that they have practiced and practiced and practiced. What do you think they're missing out on by not doing any, riffing?
I don't think you have to riff. I think you can maybe I think you can be present. Like that's probably a good takeaway from a comic who is more improvisational, but it's mostly, I don't think the lesson is like improvise. The lesson is lean into your skill set. Like whatever you're good at, lean into that. So if you feel the need to extemporize and you try
Mhm.
to resist that urge, that's negative. And if you are really comfortable on the written page and then you're like, well, I better just go up. I don't think you need to do that either. I think there's a level of presence though that is necessary for every orator, like anyone who's gonna give a speech. Like, don't be like here with your script. Be make it look like you're not reading it off the teleprompter.
Mhm. Mhm.
Deliver it, because also if you seem too nervous to make a mistake, it makes everybody else uncomfortable.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, just
Yeah.
be like, look, I'm giving a speech and it's no big deal. There you go.
Absolutely.
That is the advice I'd give.
Would you agree with this? Sometimes when I talk to groups about ad-libbing, what I say to them, and I'm not one of these comics that is having a dig at what you do, because you're undeniably one of the greatest comics that I've ever shared a stage with. But
Wow,
what, but
thanks.
what, oh, it's my pleasure. But one thing that I tell people about ad libs is that if you actually wrote them down afterwards and, analyze them, they don't always have to be the greatest jokes ever if audiences can tell that you've just thought of it, that it's in the moment, that you are reacting to
Oh yeah.
something in the room. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, sometimes it does work when you repeat it. And then sometimes those can be the things that you're like, oh, maybe I can like do that again in a different way, or like it'll come up. But yeah, like there are some people that are so funny. Like Zach Galifianakis is like that. Like there was a guy I used to love watching in America named Brody Stevens. If you transcribed his act, it would be like a man just speaking about the most mundane, boring things. But it was the
Mm.
way he said it and the fact that he was saying it was so funny. He would just talk about his day, but he had this cadence. Like I saw him one time the day that our taxes were due, and he was just, I went to the post office. I mailed my taxes. Yes, I did that. Like, and it was just so funny to be like, why are you saying this at the Improv at 10 o'clock at night, like to an audience of LA people? Like, where's the comedy? And it was to comedians, like it's just hysterical. Like everybody would rush to the room to watch Brody Stevens because of that. But if you wrote that down, like, yeah, it wouldn't make sense.
What is that link? How would you kind of quantify the difference between what's written and what's said? You mentioned cadence. Can you think of anything else that what is that kind of magic dust that you kind of sprinkle on something like that to make it funny?
Well, the French have a word for that, right? Je ne sais quoi.
Je ne sais quoi.
It's like you just got it. Some people just got funny bones, is how they say it. You got funny bones. Like I'll tell you who comes to mind is it Mike? Was it Wachowski? That's the guy
Right.
from Monsters Inc. Do they have the
Yeah.
same name?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
He sticks out to me, which is weird because I've probably spoken to him twice in 12 years. But the one I drove with him once when I first came over here, and he was just so funny. Just the way he spoke. He was just driving and he was just talking normal. And I still remember how funny he was just as a person, just talking. And I don't know how you'd even quantify that. You just like, it's just a way, but again, that's a style of comedy that's like, that some people might turn their nose. Like, I sometimes feel like with stand up, there's this theory that like the purest form of stand up, which might be true, like down to its essence, is like Jerry Seinfeld or Brian Regan.
Right.
It's like the most streamlined. It's a fastball. It's just pure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that may be true, but that's more the fault of the limitations of stand up itself. So like
Yeah.
there are people who have broken that mold, like a Zach Galifianakis, who I've been into again recently because he's got a new show on Netflix, and I was like remembering how funny he is. Like
Mm.
he did some stuff in the early 2000s that's like, yeah, you couldn't write it on paper. I mean, he had great jokes, but there's other stuff. It's just him, just with his hair all messed up and
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
tiny polo shirt that he got for a penny,
Yeah.
just screaming and shouting, and it's just funny.
Absolutely.
But you only find that, by the way, this is the thing, to circle all the way back to the beginning. The people, when I say we played hard rooms and stuff, that's how you find that. You only find your core when you go on with no armor. So I used to go on and be like, no jokes tonight, no nothing. And I am going to find my funny. And then you develop, because it's all you have. You just have persona. If you don't have jokes, you don't have any. You got to be like, you might develop a cocky attitude, or and like, that's a good way to do that, is to sort of like grind yourself down to like the essence.
Well, I mean, all comedy to an extent is like being naked up there. It's bearing your soul. But I think saying to yourself, no jokes tonight.
Yeah.
that is just like 20,000 leagues under the sea, lower than most people go.
Yeah,
Goodness
do it at an
gracious.
open mic. That's what I used to do. Do it in an open mic. If you're on the open mics, man, you are in the freest like space that you will ever be in comedy. If you're on the open mics, I know you want to get off them, but there will come a day when you go, oh wow, nobody was watching you. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. You're absolutely. I think a big part of it is breaking through a fear of failure that a lot of people hold their whole lives, and that just kind of limits you as to what you, oh, I might try that, yeah, but what if it goes wrong? If you can somehow, like at the end of the Truman Show, where he gets to the edge of it and
Exactly.
bangs through it, if you can bang through failure, you can pretty much achieve anything you want, can't you?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Is just like, that's what I said in the beginning. Is like, my threshold is like, I've taken myself to these places. Yeah, just fail. Just go, like, do it. Like, I had a set early on in San Diego. I bombed so bad that a homeless man came in the room, and I gave him the mic and I let him finish. And like, nobody was on board with that. That was weird. Like, and I just walked out of the building while this kind of like guy, this drifter guy who had been walking by the bar and looked in, rambled into the microphone. And I remember at the time, it felt like the atomic bomb of failure. And like I was like shaken. Like I was like, oh. But you know what? There you go. I mean, that's, in the end of the day, it's like nobody died.
No.
You know,
Yeah,
just a bunch of
exactly.
and a lot of times people make you feel worse. They're like, whoa. And it's like, even now, like today, if I have a bad set and people are like, whoa, it's like, relax. Like, you're overreacting. Like, whoa, oh my goodness. It's like, that's more on you. It's like, no, it's like, so what? This is stand up. Like, yeah, I took a swing and everyone was quiet in Ballum. So what? You know?
Yeah, screw people in Ballum. Russ, this has just been absolutely fantastic. Last question, and this is totally off the top of your head. Can you think of 3 comics that you would recommend to me to get on this show?
There is an American comedian that, like, he runs a club now. He was such a huge influence on me when I first started. His name is Joe Sinclitico. I think it would be hilarious if he would probably, it would be the most random thing if someone from England just got a hold of him and said, hey, this comic that you don't even remember. He wouldn't even remember me. I was an open micer when he was around. Um, who else? Tom Ward, I think.
Yeah, Tom Ward. Tom Ward actually told me to get on my bike today about coming on there. So screw Tom Ward.
Oh, he said he won't do it.
Yeah.
He
Well,
he doesn't like to do podcasts.
no.
Yeah. I hope he wasn't rude about it, but like,
No, no, he is an absolute delight. We swapped some. He's just done loads and loads and loads of it. I'll send him this clip. It'll make him laugh. Be like,
yeah,
"Oi,
yeah. I mean, he
Russell
doesn't
Hicks
like to
says you
talk.
should do it. You miserable bastard, Tom."
Yeah. I actually got offered. Someone offered me. It was kind of weird. They were like, I won't go into the details of how it happened, but there was like some situation where I was going to be in Bristol, and they were like, "Do you want to open for Tom Ward for no money?" And I was like, "Okay, that's hilarious." I was like, I would only do that if you don't tell Tom that the opener you sorted was me, because I think he would be. I don't know. He loves me. We're friends, but I don't. I just think he would be like, "What? Why? What are you? Why are you doing this? Is this like? Is this a prank? Like, what is this like?"
No, there was a story that Oasis played a big Nebworth gig and they got the Prodigy to open for them. And a few people that I know were there said that the Prodigy just smashed the lid off the place. And it was almost a
Yeah.
little bit anticlimactic to. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Wonderwall.
Well,
And everyone's
yeah.
like,
Well, I'm
oh.
definitely. I'm not saying that I would have smashed it, like blown Tom off stage. I'm just saying I think it was just a funny situation. I just think it would be like, because like I'm on tour right now. It would just be weird. It was like the weirdest offer. I was like, wait, what? And also Tom, I'm sure pays his openers, so I don't know what was going on there as well. It was just a weird thing. I basically just told someone, I was like, I'm gonna be in Bristol for something. Do you have anything? And they're like, the only thing we have is like if you want. And I was like, I don't think I'll do that. Like I don't think
What
Tom would want me to
charlatans? What
do it.
charlatans is Tom Ward getting running his tour if they can't even pay openers? Screw that guy. In fact, I'm pleased that he can't come on it.
Wow. All right.
No,
All right.
I'm joking. I'm
I
joking.
know.
I'm joking.
We've talked too long about him.
Yeah, we have. Just when I finished emailing him today.
He's as neurotic as I am, so I don't want him to get a complex here. Love the guy. Well, he was my recommendation anyway. So what am I saying? Of course he knows I love him. So wait, the third one, who's like the third person that I would say you should get on? Oh, I can think of some people right now, but they're doing really well. They don't need to be congratulated anymore.
No, sod that. Who's kind of up and coming that you've like maybe gigged with or you've been on a car ride with and you're like, they're interesting? I don't really care about big stars.
God, I'm trying to think, man. Like who have I just seen recently?
I've put you on the spot. Tell you what, message me the last one. You haven't got to do it now. We'll finish with a much easier question, Russ. If people have heard this and they want to see you in action on your tours, how on earth can they do that?
Oh, yeah. Go to my Instagram. It's Russell Hicks, 2 S's on the end there. And all my stuff's posted on there.
Awesome.
Go to Instagram. That's it. And I'm going to post more stand-up coming up. Like, I'm going to more heavy on the stand-up clips.
Well, please do, mate, because I absolutely love your stuff. I can't tell you how grateful I am that you found the time to do this. And Russ, do me a favor, brother. Never, ever change.
Thanks, man. I won't.
That, my friends, was Mr. Russell Hicks. I hope you enjoyed it. For someone who's done hundreds of comedy shows myself, I've got to say, when I heard some of Russ's answers, I felt a little bit like I was on a roller coaster. I was like, oh my God. I think there were stacks of takeaways from that. But as ever, here are 3. When you're speaking to a room of people, reading a room is crucial. And one of the things you want to think about is, have they chosen to be there? If the answer is no, then make the start about them. Afterwards, they'll listen to whatever you've got to say much better. Russ, of course, makes the entire show about them, which is an extreme version of that. But even just a few sentences would make a difference. Secondly, how it's possible to train your brain to be okay with discomfort. Russ has died so many times on stage, he is just anesthetized to that happening, to the point where he doesn't care. Let me give you an example of training your brain. Imagine I said to you, at the end of this podcast, what you have to do is take all of your clothes off and walk around the block naked. How would that make you feel? If you are a quote unquote normal person, I would suggest you would be thinking about discomfort, anxiety, embarrassment, maybe humiliation. Imagine now I said to you, you're going to have to walk around the block naked for the next year. How would you feel then? I would hypothesize that after a while, those emotions that I just described would be less. You wouldn't be as uncomfortable or anxious or embarrassed. By the end of the year, you might be strolling along. Good morning. Lovely weather for the daffodils. That's the point. Most people try something once, feel discomfort and stop, but you don't have to. Thirdly, Russ's empathy to his audience, I thought was really interesting. If you've got something to say, it's so, what's the word? It's natural just to think about yourself. You think about, oh, what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? Oh, are these slides right? Can I? But a big part of communication is putting yourself in the audience's shoes. Did you notice Russ said, I've realized that I can't do just crowd work for a whole set because it's too much for people. I need to break it up with a little bit of material. Next time you speak, put yourself in the audience's shoes. What is it that I want them to feel while they're doing this? And it might even be something as simple as breaking up a 3-hour session with breaks, comfort breaks for your audience. You can't concentrate on anything for more than about an hour before you start drifting off. If you're talking for 3 hours, you're going to need 2 breaks if you want people to keep listening. Thanks for listening to Before, During, After, a Smirk Experience podcast about performance from the inside. If you've enjoyed it, then why not share it with someone else who you think might get it? And give us a follow while you're at it. See you next time.